This episode of Every Edition is sponsored by RPG Stories, a new 3D virtual tabletop and world builder coming soon to Kickstarter this September 2022. Visit rpgstories.net to learn more, join their email list, and find the Kickstarter pre-launch page to hit the Notify Me button and follow the campaign.
This is the epitome of if somebody came to me as a low-level druid and said, I want to turn into an owlbear, I'm immediately going to say yes.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? I don't care how broken it might be.
Just use bear stats.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't care. Hello and welcome to Every Edition, your tabletop RPG talk show. I'm Jesse.
I'm John.
Today we're going to talk about the Radiant Citadel.
Oh my goodness.
New D&D books galore. There's already another one coming in like 3 weeks.
This is a big summer for 5e.
Yeah, it's a big summer.
Big summer. And our random encounter, we're going to be talking about Free RPG Day 2022 and DCC Day,
yes.
Dungeon Crawl Classics Day 2022. Two big free events in tabletop role-playing that just happened this summer. Mm-hmm. We'll give you a recap.
And of course, our morale check, where we talk about news of the week and things going on in our industry, as well as a deeper dive into RPG Stories, our sponsor for this episode. So John, what's new?
Well, I had the chance to visit a new game store that I'd never been to before down in Baltimore called Games and Stuff. It's actually just south of Baltimore in Glen Burnie, Maryland.
Do they sell games?
And stuff. It was amazing. No, it's one of the biggest gaming stores I've ever been to. It was
really
huge. The whole front of the store, it was basically like two storefronts. And the front of the store is obviously where they're selling all their games. They've got a huge section for role-playing game. They got a huge section for card games and board games. They got a huge section for miniatures. They have a place where for free you can bring a mini and you can paint and use their paints and use their magnifying glasses and lights, and they've got
so good.
You know, those air guns.
Yeah.
All that stuff is set up for. They got 8 different stations that you can use for free. What? It's awesome.
That's insane.
It's awesome. And then the whole back area is obviously where they do events and they put on Magic tournaments and Pokemon tournaments and D&D and all that kind of stuff. Just an amazing store. I couldn't believe how big it was. So if you're in and around the Baltimore area, check out Games and Stuff. And our friend Justin Sorois from Severed Books, I saw lots of Severed stuff there.
Well, he's in Baltimore, right?
He is.
Yeah.
So I saw the gelatinous cube. Gelatinous cubes were there for sale, and a bunch of the Mimic stickers and stuff like that. So it was fun to be there for DCC Day. So Jesse, how are you doing?
Oh my God. I don't know exactly how to feel. I feel like feeling particularly positive about the Dungeons and Dragons movie trailer.
Oh, we got to talk about that. I
saw the trailer, right? Yeah. I saw all the videos breaking it down. We're not going to do a sort of breakdown of every frame of whatever you see or whatnot, but we're going to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
I think someone I had talked to sort of phrased it particularly well. I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if we think back to the other older D&D movie, the trailer for that was particularly good for the time, but the movie was not.
Right.
It was very of the times and bad.
Yeah. I do. The thing that jumped out to me about the trailer was their use of lots of different monsters.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
The gelatinous cube, the owlbear, the mimic, the displacer beast. Right. All these very D&D, right, and only D&D sort of monsters. Seeing them for the first time on the big screen, or seeing them for the first time in computer animation or whatever, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, of course, there's dragons.
Of course. We've seen those before.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing a mimic, that was cool.
So, seeing the black dragon do its breath across the field was particularly good for me as a DM, because it's sometimes very difficult to explain to somebody how a black dragonborn might use their breath weapon. And you think of a dragon, you're like, oh, well, I've got fire, or, oh, I'm a blue dragon, so I can do lightning. Like, that's like easily visualized. But when you think of like an acid breath, you think of like green ooze just like spewing out in a cone, like, I don't know, like a Ghostbuster or something. Yeah. But when you have something like that to visually point to, like, no, it's like this is like tar, like hot tar. It's really interesting and a good visual tool.
Did you are you hip to the whole owlbear controversy?
Oh my God. the biggest thing, there's so many people online, like, who cares what edition this is supposed to be, what rules there are.
Right.
This is the epitome of, if somebody came to me as a low-level druid and said, I want to turn into an owlbear, I'm immediately going to say yes.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? I don't care how broken it might be.
Just use bear stats.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't care.
Yeah.
It is much cooler, and this is like a movie sort of representation of the DM saying, I don't care, have fun.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
And then it's like, of course, people online have figured out ways that this druid, like, oh, they must be like level 8 or level 10
to
be able to do it.
My favorite was, well, they could have been using polymorph, which is also in the druid spell list. I was like, oh, stop.
just enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic. There's a lot of really neat things, but I'm hoping that these aren't all of the really neat things.
Yeah.
Like, I really liked when the druid went through the portal and the camera flipped through the ground. That was a fantastic shot. That was so cool. And then you see this like big maze that's like very much a D&D, like, okay, they're about to go into a maze that maybe has some riddles or something.
Sure.
And then they jump into the gelatinous cube, and there's Red Wizards of Thay and all this stuff, and Themberchaud from the Underdark.
Yep.
That was fantastic. I think this is going to be a fantastic movie, if not just so I can gather all of my D&D groups and take a whole party of 40 people into the movie theater to go watch it.
Here's hoping. Okay, it's time for a morale check. Morale checks are when we take a look at the tabletop role-playing game industry and the news of our time.
Biggest news, Roll20 and DrivethruRPG have united.
Holy moly.
This has been particularly interesting to me.
Yes.
DrivethruRPG, I've used DrivethruRPG a million times.
Yeah.
And having integration right into Roll20 means that we don't have to wait a lot. Sometimes we have to wait when things come out for them to drop on Roll20. So they're out first on DriveThru or whatever.
Yeah.
Now with this immediate integration, it's a lot easier. The marketplace I like is a lot better over there. And of course, I use Roll20 all the time. So having just more access to more things is always good.
I mean, I know itch.io is out there as a competitor, but DriveThru's been around for
forever.
It's got to be about 20 years, right? Yeah. I mean, I remember when in the mid 2000s, or early 2000s when it came out, whenever that was, and I bought my first couple PDFs or whatever, and it just kind of blew my mind that, like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is digitally available. And at the time, I bought the second edition blue book about ships. I'm blanking on what, because we were doing a pirate adventure, and so I bought an old supplement about the ships and sea or something like that it was called. I still have access to that PDF because I'm using the same account I've been using for almost 20 years. So I've got like almost 20 years worth of purchases. And we've been fortunate enough to be using, or unfortunate enough, depending on your day, using Roll20 throughout the pandemic. So the fact that these two things that we've put a little bit of money into are merging together, I mean, that's very attractive.
It's also like, if you're someone like me DMing on Roll20 or some other virtual tabletop, I'm fortunate enough to have two screens.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of windows open at all times, but sometimes that can be a little bit much. And with the PDFs just sort of integrated into Roll20, it makes that infinitely easier.
Yeah, and I do imagine too, I mean, Roll20's got some competitors out there now. And so they need to up their game because, let's face it, I don't think I'm talking smack here. It's not super user friendly.
No, not at all.
So like there's a learning curve with,
Yeah.
with Roll20, and I'm still learning on that curve. Like
It's been a couple years.
I still don't feel like I've mastered
Yeah.
mastered it, and I'm always like, how do I do the thing, and what's the what is this, and but the fact that it's integrating with DrivethruRPG, wow, that's
big for them.
Make it powerful, unbelievable. All right, in other news, coming up in August, here we are. Zine Quest 4.
More zines.
Zine Quest 4, ladies and gentlemen. We had Zine Month
Yep.
back in, I think it was February, right? We had Zine Month, Zemo. And that was Kickstarter, changing the, pulling the plug. And then they plugged back in for coming up this August 2022. It's a lot.
Yeah, twice a year is a lot.
Twice a year is a lot. I'm still waiting for some stuff that I backed in February, and I can tell with a flurry of updates and stuff like that, people who are, who did something for Zemo and are wanting to do something for Zine Quest 4, are trying to, let their backers know, hey, your stuff's coming, or trying to get it wrapped up before they're about to launch something new.
Yeah.
I just think if you couple a second Zine Month with the current state of the economy, like, wow.
Yeah, if I'm looking at all of the zines, I have to really, really pick which one.
Yeah.
And if I come to one or whatever, I then have to choose: do I want that or do I want gas?
Yeah.
Which is, it's a real decision.
Yes. Well, and I wholeheartedly, when I'm thinking it was the only Zine Month of the year, the only once a year, like Christmas, right? I was like, I'm going to back, all the Morkborg stuff, all the old school essential stuff, all the Mothership stuff that I can. And now that there's another one, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to back much of anything. Like it's a little bit like
You burnt out.
Yeah. Like I had an ice cream sundae, and now somebody's saying like, hey, you want some candy? I'm like, no, I'm full. And I hate to say, I hate to say that because I love collecting role playing, and of course, I say that, and then stuff's going to start to come out, and I'm going to end up backing most of it, and then.
Well, this is also the same month. Radiant Citadel just came out.
Right.
Spelljammer's coming out.
Yep.
There's a ton of stuff happening in the RPG world.
Yep.
So everything is vying for your money.
Right.
And it's just a lot. It's just a lot.
It's got limits. It's got limits. So Zine Quest 4, if you didn't get enough with Zemo back in February, August is going to be full of lots of zines too for you to back. And here we go.
This could be good if you missed Zemo.
Yeah. If you missed Zemo, there you go.
PAX Unplugged 2022 is this December, the 2nd through the 4th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the tickets are on sale now. I think we're going to try to get press passes.
Let's see.
We're definitely going to be there to some extent. So if you're going to be there, let us know. Maybe we could meet up and talk RPGs and stuff, and maybe play some games.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I've been a couple times. I've not been in the most recent years. Super fun. I really like being able to gather around and play new games.
Yeah.
And we just talked about some cons that you've gone to. I'm not going to Gen Con. So yeah, badges are on sale.
Cool. Yeah, I can't. It was so much fun being a fan and representing every edition at Origins. I cannot wait for PAX Unplugged. It's going to be awesome, and I know it's in December, and that's still a little ways away, but you can get your tickets now if you want, right? So, and yeah, we'll definitely be there. So hope to see you there too. And finally, coming to Kickstarter September 1st is RPG Stories, a new 3D virtual tabletop and world builder. The developers are tabletop RPG fans, but they work in the video game industry, and they're looking to marry their two interests, their work that they do in video games with their love of tabletop role-playing games, and create a new 3D virtual tabletop experience for pen and paper role-playing games. Sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. This is fantastic. Coming off of summer camp for world building, I am hyped up on world building things. More tools for DMs and GMs to use to build their worlds and have fun experiences for their players. And this, it bridges the gap between video game and tabletop RPG, which can sometimes be done very poorly. But I think this looks particularly interesting. The genres look great.
Yep.
I'm excited to try it out and see how this could integrate with virtual tabletop, like being able to build something that you can physically go into in the virtual space and maybe even hang out and have a session there. I'm particularly excited about this.
Yeah, it looks promising. Our full disclosure, RPG Stories is sponsoring this episode, and thank you very much, RPG Stories, for your sponsorship. But Jesse and I both think this is definitely worth keeping an eye on. You can visit rpgstories.net right now. You can sign up to be notified on their Kickstarter pre-launch page. You can also join their email list, and the Kickstarter is going to launch on September 1st. So you got a month to kind of check some things out and get signed up for different notifications and mailing lists and things, and then look for that September 1st launch, rpgstories.net.
Links for all of these will be in the description below. So speaking about virtual tabletops, do you use a virtual tabletop, or are you exclusively a table gamer? The pandemic has really shifted how I view a tabletop versus virtual tabletop. Like we said earlier, we use Roll20, and some of our previously only tabletop players are across the U.S. now, so that really helps too. Being able to connect with people via the internet is really good. But I still really, really enjoy gathering around the table and think that is a true sort of D&D tabletop experience, and just has a different sort of feel. But I know some people use, Fantasy Grounds or other virtual tabletops, and that's what they prefer. So I'm curious to know who's watching, who might like virtual tabletop versus actual tabletop.
Yeah, get in touch with us. everyeditionrpg@gmail.com. That's our email address. You can send us a note. You can also find links to all of our socials over at everyeditionrpg.com. We've got links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've also got links to our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And of course, big thanks to everyone who's watching us on YouTube. We are on the march for 1,000 subscribers. And
it's going to be a journey.
It's going to be a journey, but journey with us. Help us out. Spread the word. everyeditionrpg.com. Thanks for watching, and we really appreciate it. All right, it's time for a random encounter. Today's random encounter, we are going to be recapping two of the biggest events of this summer for the tabletop role-playing game industry. That is Free Role-Playing Game Day and Dungeon Crawl Classics Day. Two big events where fans can get some goodies and some freebies. And we're gonna have a discussion. We're gonna break our discussion down into two parts. The first part of this discussion is we'll do a little bit of show and tell of some of the things that we think were the best coming out of Free Role-Playing Game Day and Dungeon Crawl Classics Day. And then for the second half of our conversation, we're just going to talk about Free Role-Playing Game Day in general, what it's like to run an event like that, what it's like for a fan, what it's like for somebody who works at a store, and how this does or doesn't contribute value to our industry.
Sure.
So I'll go first. I think one of the best offerings for Free Role-Playing Game Day for the last couple of years has been Level 1, which is a collection of small role-playing game projects. And it's published and put out by Ninth Level Games, who just released Mazes, right? And uses their polymorph system. So they've got Volume 3, which came out. And again, it's an indie RPG anthology, really exciting. Their Volume 2 is actually up for a bunch of awards that you can vote for right now.
Nice.
So they're starting to get their accolades, and this is a recent free offering. See if you can pick this one up, get a nice sampling of lots of different things.
From Paizo, we have a couple of things. Of course, we have every year they do one Starfinder thing and one Pathfinder thing.
Yep.
Now we're firmly in second edition of Pathfinder, and they've got a Fistful of Flowers.
Holy moly.
Which is just like a one-shot. It's like a cutesy sort of all-ages one-shot. based around plants and things like that.
Plant
It
people.
seems really cool. If you've got something like this happening in your either D&D or Pathfinder game, you could take some of this stuff.
Sure.
And it's free and it's great. And there's like inside it, there's like a little mushroom person who's like a swashbuckler, which is really fun. So that's pretty cool. But also Starfinder, we have a continuation of a 2018 free RPG Day Starfinder adventure, like a mini adventure like this.
Okay.
Called Skitter Warp. In this, there are a bunch of characters. This comes with everything that you would need. So pre-generated characters, monsters, and things like that. The story, the one-shot. A majority of them are all Skittermanders. Skittermanders in Starfinder are these like 6-armed little people who you can wield a weapon in each of those arms. Oh. So you're just a team of Skittermander going around, and they're like one of the most popular Starfinder races. But they're it's particularly good, and of course the maps inside and the artwork is always fantastic for Starfinder. So if you're playing Starfinder, definitely pick this one up.
Cool. All right. Well, let's share. Each of us share our top choice then.
Oh yeah.
So my top choice for free role-playing game day, the thing that I think is the one, if I could only pick one thing, it would be Danger in the Air, the Dungeon Crawl Classics new zero level adventure that was available for free role-playing game day. It is an adventure. You can tell from the cover, there's this giant sort of alien floating castle, organic, almost like flying squid or jellyfish, spaghetti monster kind of thing, flying. And the player characters, who are just regular commoners, see through the translucent belly of this giant jellyfish lots of treasure and gold in a castle in its belly. And so you climb its tendrils to invade the castle. And this easily could be a Mutant Crawl Classics adventure. This easily could be a Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure, whatever. It really does that nice job of weird fantasy, almost science fiction. You're going to have a fun time. You're going to have a fun time, that's right. And they only do a short run of these, and then they're gone. So again, as a collector too, it's just great to grab this. So Danger in the Air was my favorite. It's available as a PDF on the Goodman Games website, but if you can track down the physical,
my top pick, I'm going to give 5 points to anybody who would guess this, if you know the list of things that were coming out. Cyberpunk Red from R. Talsorian. This is called Easy Mode.
There you go.
It's essentially like a mini storybook or campaign book.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's like 40 pages, and it's got everything that you would need to start playing Cyberpunk Red now, apart from the dice.
Yeah.
It comes with characters, like pre-generated characters. It comes with character creation. It comes with a history of Cyberpunk, so you can get caught up in case you don't know what Cyberpunk is. It loaded with information. So of course it's one shot as well. It's got insane looking maps. All of the maps that they make for this game are incredibly detailed and very versatile because there's no real campaigns in Cyberpunk. So you could use these maps in a different campaign or a different one shot or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, it seems like their version of Quick Start, right?
Oh yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
And for being free, this is an insane value because the starter set is like $30 or $40, and this is like half of the starter set in one book. It's crazy.
Cyberpunk Red, Easy Mode.
Yep, Easy Mode.
And Danger in the Air, Dungeon Crawl Classics. Easily the two best.
Easily
the two best.
Bang for your buck.
Yeah, bang for because it was free. So that's great. All right, well, let's talk a little bit then about just sort of the event of free role-playing game day, the event of Dungeon Crawl Classics Day, and what it's like to run that kind of event, why a store would choose to do it, why a store wouldn't, and then we can talk a little bit about what it's like to be a fan, especially if you happen to be in a gaming store desert. Sure. Where they're just not available.
So I'm not going to give too many details out because I don't know how comfortable my boss would be about it. But I did run and I was the store manager for a fairly large comic book shop on the East Coast for about 4 years. And even now, after a couple of years, we've never run RPG Day, free RPG Day. When I was in charge of making sure all this stuff worked, I had no idea Free RPG Day existed. We know about Free Comic Book Day. It's a comic book shop. We held D&D games and had a bunch of RPG books that you could buy, but never did Free RPG Day stuff. It's kind of interesting to think about how big Free Comic Book Day is, and compare it to how little people know about Free RPG Day or even Dungeon Crawl Classics Day.
Well, and it's clear that Free RPG Day is built off of the bones and the idea of Free Comic Book Day, and that really, I mean, frankly, what seems like the success of Free Comic Book Day. It's everywhere. Everybody knows when Free Comic Book Day is, right? And some years it feels like you get a really good offering of stuff, and some years it really just feels like you're getting some ads. It really depends, right? But it's trying to recreate, I think, right, the success of Free Comic Book Day, but it's clearly a much smaller, more niche appeal.
And there's only, I think, one shop in our area that was doing it, which is insane because our area is particularly saturated with comic book stores and hobby shops and things that would carry something like this. It's just not on anybody's radar.
Right. Well, and I wonder, too, if it's harder to, the turnover that a store needs to do, right, in order to make a profit. If it's easier to turn over comic books, right, versus turning over a $50 rule book, right? And so it's only going to be a really particular kind of store, that's gonna participate in Free Role Playing Game Day that has that kind of turnover for role playing games, right?
I think Wizards not being a part of Free RPG Day is a big drawback as well.
Yeah.
Because most hobby shops only carry Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe they carry Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Yeah, they're sort of flexing a muscle by not being a part of it, right? They basically are like, we don't need it. They used to be a part of it, right? And especially in the 4th edition era, I can remember there were a lot of different Free RPG Day 4th edition adventures that were put out, but not so much in the 5th edition.
And it really stinks because we have all these sweet things that are you can't get them. You can't get them anywhere. Or you have to travel an insane amount to go to a store that might have them and hope to get them before somebody else does.
Right. Well, so I want to give a quick shout out to the Complete Strategist, which was where I went to get free role playing game day stuff, and it's fantastic brick and mortar store. They really do. It has a serious emphasis on role playing games, and so them participating in free role playing game day wasn't a surprise to me at all. They were very, very nice with it. I got there right when they opened. There was a little bit of a line.
Really?
I think at the end of the day, if you're thinking a little bit about etiquette, if you're going to be getting something for free, you probably should spend some money.
Oh, yeah.
At the store, because those things weren't free for the store. The store spent money to get those free products for you, right? So I guess we do talk about etiquette every once in a while when it comes to tabletop role playing games, and this is another one. If you're going to get if you're going to get something for free, spend a little bit of money, buy a pack of Magic cards or something.
Yeah, something, or like a DM screen or a mini.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. I guarantee you, if you spend a little bit of money on free role playing game day, you probably can ask for a second book or something like that. Of the free things.
So thinking about free comic book day, most stores do like free comic book day might have 50 different books that you could get, but no store is going to let you come in and take one of each.
Right.
They're going to let you take 3 or 5, and then however many dollars you spend above that, you can take a couple more maybe. You're never going to walk into one shop and get them all.
Right.
So you do have to travel to a bunch of different stores if you want to try to collect them all. This is even more like the breakdown of books that a store would get is even more limited. So and with a limited amount of stores holding the event, it's really difficult to get the one that you want. So when you do, and they're gracious enough to give it to you, spend some money.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so before we wrap up, I do want to say a little bit about Dungeon Crawl Classics Day, which is this past July 16th, 2022. So Goodman Games has a specific day where they celebrate Dungeon Crawl Classics, and they put out a Dungeon Crawl Classics Day adventure pack. So this year's adventure pack has one adventure for Mutant Crawl Classics and one adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics. They're both second level. And again, they only print so many, and they're only supposed to be available for that day. They are free, and then they're gone. So these end up becoming somewhat collectible for a little while. So worth hunting down. But they also had 2 releases on Dungeon Crawl Classics Day that were available for purchase, and they were only available for purchase on Dungeon Crawl Classics Day on the limited day. So the first one was level 1 adventure called Canters in the Dark. And so that was $10, which is the standard price for one of their adventures. That's a level 1 adventure only available on DCC Day. And the last one was a patron source book, which this I can't believe was
pretty good.
Super limited. It makes me think that they probably got a patron book, an official Goodman Games Dungeon Crawl Classics patron book in the works, and maybe this is actually just a teaser.
Yeah.
But for those of you that aren't familiar, right, patrons, if you play 5th edition, it's kind of like the Warlock, right? How the Warlock has a being, right, that it sort of pays tribute to and gets its power from. Dungeon Crawl Classics has that in the form of their patronage system for Magic as well. And so these are sort of like, usually they're like lesser gods and sort of almost like if you saw Thor: Love and Thunder, sort of like they're flawed, right? And they're selfish, and they're
some higher up demons that aren't quite super powerful.
Yeah, they're petty, and so this captures that and gives you 7 new patrons to use in your Dungeon Crawl Classics game. And like I said, I find it hard to believe that this isn't the sort of a blinking light for something to come.
Yeah, there's something coming.
Yeah, something coming. So anyway, it was an exciting Dungeon Crawl Classics Day. I want to give a shout out again to Games and Stuff down in Baltimore, which is where I needed to travel to in order to find a store participating in DCC Day. Much harder. I mean, free role-playing game day is hard.
Yeah.
DCC Day is even harder, at least in our area.
Yeah,
right? It's hard. And so that one was definitely, as a fan, I've had to travel for that particular day now a couple times. So PDFs are available, but I want the physical book, and you got to go to a store that is participating. So there you go. So let us know, did you get the goods on free role-playing game day? Did you get the goods on Dungeon Crawl Classics Day? I did, but I had to travel, and the gas prices were crazy.
Yeah.
So was it worth it? I don't know. I think it was, because I love this hobby. I love these 2 days. I wish they were bigger. I think by us talking about it, hopefully it gets the word out there for next year and next time around. It really is fun. Let us know, though, does your friendly local gaming store participate in free role-playing game day or Dungeon Crawl Classics Day? Have you ever talked to them about participating or encouraged them to participate?
Yeah.
Let us know. Drop a note in the comments, or contact us at everyeditionrpg@gmail.com. You can also find links to all of our socials at everyeditionrpg.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You also find links to Spotify and to Apple Podcasts. Thanks to everybody who's watching and listening on YouTube. We are ever appreciative.
It's time to loot the body. Today we're looking at Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, the newest book from 5th edition from Wizards of the Coast, talking about the ethereal realm and the changes that they're making, and how you might be able to use this book in your campaigns. This has a very Yawning Portal, Candlekeep, Ghost of Saltmarsh type feel, where it's a bunch of different adventures in one book that are meant to be not quite one-shots, but maybe a couple of sessions that might get your characters up a few levels. And they span any level from 1 to level 14, so it goes fairly high.
Yeah, it really does seem like you can pick and choose, similar to Candlekeep and similar to Yawning Portal. Pick and choose the adventures that speak to you, the ones that look particularly good, or if you're coming out of a campaign and your characters are a specific level.
Yeah.
I know that was one of the things that was appealing to me about Candlekeep was that it had like a level 16.
Yeah.
You know, like, so when you're coming out of one of those long epic campaigns and you don't want it to end, you had a place to go. We did the same thing with Yawning Portal. We picked more of the high level stuff after a big campaign. So that's how we've used these books in the past. There was one particular adventure as I was reading through Journey Through the Radiant Citadel that spoke to me, and it was the 11th level adventure called Shadow of the Sun.
Okay.
The thing that I liked about it was you were in a city that was run by angels.
Okay.
And, you know, you spend a lot of time fighting demons in Dungeons and Dragons and hearing a lot about demons and stuff. You don't necessarily hear a lot or spend a lot of time with angels. And lawful creatures, like from the plane of law and all that stuff, they can be pretty messed up, like, right? Just as messed up as chaotic creatures and stuff. And so this gives you a little bit of a flavor of how messed up, you know, a truly lawful, you know, sort of group of angels could be, and how they would run a city state and all that kind of stuff. There's anarchists, and there's some kind of like lunar festival where the moon shines as bright as the sun for like a couple hours this one particular evening every 3 years. It's got a cool, I like that whole like setting and festival kind of idea. And like I said, the idea of getting a little bit more time with angels sounds cool. So that one in particular spoke to me.
That's interesting. You can use this as you can roll up characters and go level 1 through 14.
Yep.
Just hop. The way the ethereal plane works, you can just use that book itself, and it just sort of makes sense.
Yeah, it does seem like this could be a campaign book.
Yeah.
Right? Just plow through them all together, take your character from 1 to 14, or pick and choose.
Yeah.
Right?
And I like that each adventure has a sort of, hey, if you plan on using this in the Forgotten Realms, make this slight change or give this slight addition to whatever it may be. But it also has a couple of them have Greyhawk options, which is particularly interesting.
Yeah,
we've been talking about Greyhawk and the potential for the next iteration of D&D. So it's interesting to see that in the ethereal plane with these adventures.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first, everybody. I think the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons is going to have a Greyhawk emphasis. I think the 5.5 or whatever you want to call it is going to have a Greyhawk emphasis. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a Spelljammer-esque Greyhawk release.
Yep.
I think this is again, this isn't the first book to have a flavor of Greyhawk, but it's on every single adventure.
Yeah,
they've got like here's how to use it. Here's how to use it for the Radiant Citadel. Here's how to use it for the Forgotten Realms. Here's how to use it for Greyhawk. Yeah, cool. So again, a hint at things to come. They don't do stuff like that unless they're laying a foundation or planting seeds for what's to come.
They need things to be backwards compatible.
Yep.
Which is exactly what this is.
Yep. So 50th anniversary, I'm telling you, Greyhawk, here it is.
I'll say the one detractor of this, we were kind of discussing before this, that each adventure has its own little pronunciation guide, which I really, really appreciate whenever it's there.
Guides.
They're fantastic because D&D words, like, what are they? Like, what? Who makes these? So that's really good, but they don't have like an appendix of all of the magic items that they reference here, which I really don't like because I'm a big fan of magic items. So
well, it's true.
That's a one detractor.
Always jump right to like, what are the magic items? What are the new monsters?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And so there isn't a magic item, a magic item section in this book. So one strike against it. Yeah, and I think if you want this or not. Like if you already have Ghosts of the Salt Marsh, if you already have Candlekeep, maybe you don't need this because you haven't used all those adventures yet. Or, obviously the appeal here is the ethereal plane.
Yep.
And so if you want to take your characters to the ethereal plane, then this is where, this book is for you. I mean, this is what you want.
This is the most fleshed out
Yep.
ethereal plane. Also, I like the idea of taking all of those books that are just, mishmashes of various adventures and maybe even rolling a dice or seeing and make a whole campaign out of all these little snippets from all the different books and trying to make that a cool puzzle. I like that.
Pick a path.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thanks a lot. This is every edition, the Tabletop RPG Talk Show. Special thanks to this episode's sponsor, RPG Stories, launching a brand new Kickstarter on September 1st, 2022. RPG Stories is aiming to bring a 3D virtual tabletop and world-building experience to the hobby of tabletop role-playing games. Visit rpgstories.net to learn more. Join their email list and find the Kickstarter pre-launch page to hit the notify button and follow the campaign. Thanks a lot for sponsoring this episode, RPG Stories, and thanks a lot to all of you for watching and listening. We can't do this without you. We really appreciate you tuning in.
This has been fantastically fun, and we're now on episode 21, and I still can't believe it. You know, we were just the other month we were talking about Zemo, and that was dozens of episodes ago. It's fine. It's been a good sort of experiment and sort of deep dive into the RPG sort of space. I come from a place of only 5th edition D&D, so this has been a big sort of eye-opener, and seeing things like virtual tabletops come into play and getting to interview people has been fantastic.
Yeah, and we're going to keep doing it. So thanks a lot, everybody, and stick with us. We're on a journey.
Journey through the Radiant Citadel.
Oh, you bet.